things subtracted from each other, they can give that to you in multiple different forms. And later on, once we're done with all the different types of factoring techniques, I'm going to go through, probably do, sit down and take like at least 20, 30 different types of factoring questions, and I'm going to factor those out using, all the different factoring techniques, the manual factoring techniques, right? So I'm not going to do too many more examples with the difference of squares right now. But one type of factoring question that they give people, or I've seen appear a lot, is basically, it doesn't look like it's two things subtracted from each other, but it is two things subtracted from each other. So one thing, the simplest version of, is the following. Sometimes they love giving a question like this, which is, this is x minus 5 all squared minus 16, right? Now, if you've done enough problems like this, you know that this is just two things subtracted from each other. Like we said, any two things subtracted from each other, you can factor. So all it becomes is the square root of this guy minus the square root of 16, the square root of this guy plus the square root of 16. Now the square root of x minus 5 all squared, that's just going to be x minus 5, right? The square root of 16 is 4, so it's going to be x minus 5. That's, if you want, if this confuses you, that, that this is now two terms, what you can do is put, brackets around here and realize that that's just the square root of that guy, right? But the square root of x minus 5 all squared is just x minus 5. The square root of 16 is just 4. Close your bracket, and the square root of x minus 5 all squared is just x minus 5 again. And square root of 16 is just plus 4. Now this question, you need to take it one more step further, because you can combine your 5s and 4s here, right? So this becomes x minus 5 minus 4, negative 5, the sign in front of the number goes with the number. So negative 5 minus 4 is going to be negative 9, so that's just going to be x minus 9. And that's going to be negative 5 plus 4. Negative 5 plus 4 is going to be negative 5. Confused myself when I had two negatives here, right? But you can't have two negatives, because these two numbers, if you combine them, you get a negative number. So this just becomes x minus 9 times x minus 1. And that's that guy factored. Let's do the reverse of this. When you have 16 up front and minus x minus 5 all squared. And something changes when you do that. And that goes back to when we were dealing with negative numbers. If you have a negative number in front of a bracket, in front of brackets where there's multiple terms in there, that negative sign is going to apply inside all the terms inside the bracket. So let's just flip these guys around and see what happens there. So let's flip the last one and see what happens, where that special rule where you apply the negative sign inside the bracket comes in, right? So all we've done is just flip the two numbers around. We got 16 minus x minus 5 all squared, right? Or x minus 5 all squared. So it's just going to be the square root of the first term minus the square root of the second term, square root of the first term plus the square root of the second term. But one thing we're going to have to be careful of is the negative sign minus the second term. That negative sign is going to apply both to x and to the negative 5. So what we're going to do when we square root this term, we're going to put our brackets in there. Now, the more of these you do, the less you need to use the brackets. I personally use them a lot because I don't want to remember what sign has changed to what. I would rather just do another term, just follow up with another line, and remove the brackets there, okay? Because I ended up making a lot of silly mistakes when I just do, when I try to solve a lot of problems when it comes to tests, right? You end up, we're human, right? We end up making mistakes. To eliminate mistakes, we use the symbols, okay? We don't skip the steps. So let's just do this one. So what we got for the first one, the square root of 16 is just 4. So 4 minus the square root of x minus 5 all squared is just going to be x minus 5. But because we have a negative sign right there, that negative sign is going to apply to the x and the negative 5, right? So I put the extra brackets in there because that's going to remind me for the next line to apply the negative sign going inside the brackets. And whenever you have negative bracket, that basically means that's -1, right? You could have had a number in front there, right? You could have had, that could have been a 4 there, and square root of 4 would have been 2, so the -2 would have been applied. But we didn't have a number there. So it just means that -1's being multiplied in. For that line, that's just good. That's square root of 16 is 4 plus the square root of 5 minus x minus 5 all squared. Now, the plus sign, that's just +1 going in, so the signs don't change. The x stays the same and -5 stays the same. So whenever, for the positive one, whenever you encounter something like this, for the positive one, you don't need those brackets there. Because whenever you have a positive sign in front of brackets, the signs don't change. If there was a number there, for sure you should put the brackets in and multiply them in there, right? So the next line, we're just going to eliminate those brackets, the double brackets that we have, and we're going to see what we have. So what we got on the next line is 4 minus x, because negative 1, bring it inside the bracket, negative times x is going to be negative x, negative times -5 is going to be positive 5. So 4 minus x plus 5, and the other side just stays the same, it's just 4 plus x minus 5. So what we can do now is just combine the numbers together, add them together, right? And 4 plus 5 is going to be 9. And over here we got 4 minus 5 is going to be -1. So what we ended up with is 9, 4 plus 5 is 9, 9 minus x. And over on this side we got 4 minus 5 is -1, and we got an x. So I got x minus 1. Now you could have written the bottom as -1 plus x, right? But I usually don't like the first term when it comes to brackets, if I can help it anyway, for the first term to have a negative there, because that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle, right? So I like to keep the first term with the brackets as a positive. That way I don't have to worry about that term there, right? So I usually end up putting the negative as a second term, or the third term, or fourth term, whatever it ends up being, right? So for the factor of this, 16 minus bracket x minus 5 all squared, factoring that, we end up with 9 minus x times x minus 1. Okay, and that answer is different from what we got before when it was x minus 5 squared minus 16, right? Because the negative sign flipped things around for us. Okay.